The millionaire saw the blood and realized the truth. His next move shocked everyone. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. The room is quiet in a way that feels heavy, like the air itself is holding its breath. Soft light spills across white sheets. The wedding flowers, already beginning to wilt, release a faint, sweet scent that does not belong to this moment. He stands near the edge of the bed, jacket still on, tie loosened but not removed, posture stiff as if this were another business negotiation he could control with numbers and signatures. He is a billionaire, a man who built his empire before 40. A man used to winning by walking forward, never stopping, never hesitating. Then he sees it, a small stain, red against white, impossible to ignore, impossible to misunderstand. Time slows, his breath catches. In that instant, everything he believed about her fractures. She is sitting on the edge of the bed, shoulders drawn inward, hands clenched in her lap. She does not look up, she does not speak, she does not try to explain. She is braced for something, for anger, for humiliation, for the final cost of the contract she signed with shaking hands. But the truth hits him before a single word can leave his mouth. She is not what his family called her. She is not what the tabloids whispered. She is not what he allowed himself to assume. She is innocent. And suddenly, the contract feels heavier than any deal he has ever signed. He remembers the clauses, the cold language, the way he listed expectations as if he were ordering a service, not binding a human life to his own. He remembers her quiet nod, her voice barely steady when she said yes, because she had no other way out. The power imbalance slams into him all at once. This was never supposed to be complicated. The marriage was a shield, a transaction, a solution to a problem his board demanded he fix before the next quarter. Appear married, secure the merger, silence the rumors, control the narrative. He told himself she knew what she was agreeing to. Now he realizes how wrong that was. She finally lifts her head just enough to look at the floor between them. Her voice is soft, almost apologetic. She says she understands if he is disappointed. She says she will not ask for anything more than what was promised. She says she will endure whatever he decides. Those words cut deeper than any accusation, because in that moment, he understands something he has never been forced to face before. Leadership is not about taking what you are allowed to take. It is about knowing when to stop. He takes one step back, not forward, back. The silence stretches, thick and unfamiliar. His heart pounds louder than it ever did during an earnings call or hostile takeover. He looks at her again, really looks at her, and sees fear layered beneath composure, dignity clinging to her like armor. And then he does something no one expects a man like him to do. He stops everything. Right here, this is where the story truly begins. Because to understand why she is sitting there in silence, braced for judgment, She was there because her back was against the wall. The hospital had called that morning. The bill had doubled. Insurance would not cover the next procedure. Her mother needed surgery within 30 days, or the damage would be permanent. 30 days she did not have. 30 days she could not buy with overtime shifts or borrowed money. When the lawyer slid the contract across the table, her hands trembled. Marriage in name, appearances in public, discretion at all times. In return, every debt cleared, every bill paid, security guaranteed. There was a clause she barely managed to read before the words blurred. A clause about expectations, about duties, about a role she would be required to fulfill. She swallowed and nodded. Because when survival is on the line, dignity becomes negotiable. Or at least, that is what the world teaches you. She did not cry when she signed. She did not beg. She simply wrote her name carefully, as if steady handwriting could somehow protect the rest of her. From that moment on, she became his wife on paper. The world changed overnight. Designers arrived with dresses she was afraid to touch. Assistants spoke to her like she was furniture that might break if handled incorrectly. At the mansion, every hallway echoed. Every mirror reflected someone she barely recognized. She learned quickly where she did not belong. At the first family dinner, No one asked where she was from. They asked what she had done before this. The way they said it made the answer irrelevant. At charity events, cameras flashed while whispers followed. She smiled because she had been told to. She stayed quiet because silence was safer than defense. He noticed, but he did not intervene. To him, this was still an arrangement, a clean solution to a messy problem. He had made it clear from the start that emotions were not part of the deal. He kept his distance, spoke to her with professional courtesy, and maintained control of every situation. She told herself that was easier. She slept alone in the guest room. She locked the door every night, not because she was afraid of him, but because fear had become a habit. She folded her clothes precisely. She followed the rules. She did not touch anything that did not belong to her. She carried the weight of the contract like a secret she could never set down. And through all of it, she reminded herself why she was there. The quiet phone calls from the hospital, the updates about recovery, the relief in her mother's voice when the bills stopped coming. That was the price, and she was paying it. So when the wedding night finally arrived, she had already prepared herself for whatever came next. She had accepted that this was the final line in the agreement. She told herself she would endure it the same way she had endured everything else. That is why she sat so still. That is why she did not argue. That is why, when the truth revealed itself in that room, she did not expect mercy. She had never been promised mercy, and she certainly did not expect him to stop. By the time the wedding arrived, the rules had already been written into her bones. The contract was not just ink on paper. It was a list of boundaries that shaped every hour of her new life. Where she could stand, when she could speak, how she should smile, what questions she was not allowed to ask. She remembered the day his assistant reviewed the expectations with her, voice calm and efficient, as if explaining office policy. Public appearances were mandatory. Interviews were scripted. Physical distance would be maintained unless otherwise required. Privacy was a privilege, not a right. She listened without interrupting. When she finally asked one question, her voice barely rose above a whisper. She asked what would happen if she failed. The answer was simple: the support would end. So she learned to perform. At the rehearsal dinner, she stood beside him while cameras flashed. Her hand rested lightly on his arm, careful not to grip too tightly. She nodded when spoken to. She laughed when expected. She absorbed the stares that lingered a second too long, measuring her worth, searching for flaws. Someone asked how they met. He answered smoothly, a polished version of the truth that required no participation from her. Someone else commented on how lucky she was. She smiled and thanked them, because that was easier than explaining that luck had nothing to do with it. Inside, she felt like an observer in her own life. His family did not hide their judgment. It lived in the pauses between sentences, in the way conversation stopped when she entered a room. They never addressed her directly when they could speak around her instead. At one gathering, a woman leaned in close and asked quietly if she understood what she had married into. The tone was not concern, it was warning. She understood perfectly. He noticed the tension, but he did not step in. Not because he was cruel, but because he believed distance was kindness. He believed that keeping emotions out of the arrangement protected them both. He told himself she was strong enough. That belief shattered slowly. It broke during a charity gala held in a ballroom filled with crystal light and polished smiles. She wore a gown chosen for her, elegant and expensive, and felt more exposed than she ever had in her life. Conversations swirled around her, each one brushing against her like a test she could not prepare for. Then someone said it out loud, not loudly enough to cause a scene, but clearly enough to be heard. A remark about how quickly some women rose when money was involved. A comment about ambition disguised as affection. Laughter followed. She froze. Every instinct told her to leave, but she stayed. She looked toward him, searching for something. A word, a glance, a signal that she was not alone in this. He did not react, not because he agreed, but because he hesitated. And in that hesitation, the moment passed. The silence did more damage than any insult. Later that night, alone again, she sat at the edge of the guest bed and stared at the floor. She did not cry. Tears felt indulgent. Instead, she reminded herself why she was here. She reminded herself of the hospital room, of the promise she made to endure. The wedding morning arrived too soon. Makeup artists circled her. Stylists adjusted fabric. Someone commented that she looked perfect. She nodded, feeling anything but. As she walked down the aisle, she did not feel like a bride. She felt like a witness to her own agreement being finalized in public. The vows were short. The applause was loud. The cameras captured everything except what mattered. By the time they reached the room that night, she had already accepted her role in full. Whatever was required, she would fulfill it. She would not ask for tenderness. She would not ask for understanding. She believed the contract had stripped her of those rights. That belief is what made his reaction so impossible to predict. Because the man who had maintained control in every room, who had mastered every negotiation, was about to face the one truth no contract could contain. And for the first time, he would have to choose not as a billionaire, but as a man. The room no longer feels like a wedding suite. It feels like a space suspended between two lives that no longer know how to move forward. He stands near the window, staring out at the city lights, hands resting at his sides as if he is afraid to touch anything. She remains seated, unsure whether she is allowed to move, unsure whether the pause means safety or another test. Finally, he speaks. His voice is lower than she expects, steady but not cold. He tells her to rest. He tells her nothing more will happen tonight. He tells her she does not owe him anything. She does not answer right away. Years of survival have taught her that kindness often comes with conditions. She waits for the other part of the sentence that never arrives. When it does not, she nods. He steps back again, creating space deliberately, as if distance itself is an apology. He takes the extra blanket from the chair and places it within her reach without looking directly at her. Then he leaves the room. The door closes softly. She sits there long after he is gone, staring at the place where he stood. Her body slowly releases tension she did not realize she was holding. Her hands begin to shake, not from fear, but from the unfamiliar feeling of relief. That night, for the first time since signing the contract, she sleeps without locking the door. Morning comes quietly. There is no knock from assistants, no schedule handed to her, no instructions waiting outside. The mansion feels different, as if it too is unsure how to proceed. When she finally steps into the hallway, she expects eyes, whispers, questions. Instead, she finds distance. Staff members keep their voices low. No one stares, no one follows. At breakfast, he is already seated at the far end of the table, reading nothing, coffee untouched. When she enters, he looks up immediately. He stands, not out of habit, but intention. He tells her good morning, not formally, not politely, simply good morning. He tells her that the contract is still in effect for now, but some terms will change. He says there will be no expectations beyond public appearances. He says she will have her own space, her own schedule, her own freedom inside the house. She listens carefully, searching for hidden language. There is none. Then he does something that unsettles her even more. He apologizes. Not for the arrangement, not for the situation, but for what he allowed others to say, for the silence he chose when he should have spoken, for the assumptions he made without asking who she truly was. She does not know how to respond. No one in his world has ever apologized to her before. He tells her that whatever she needs, she should say it, that she is no longer required to endure quietly. The word endure echoes in her chest. Later that day, the change becomes visible. At a meeting with his legal team, she is invited to sit at the table instead of waiting outside. When a family member questions her presence, he interrupts calmly and states that she is his wife, not an accessory. The room goes quiet. She feels the shift immediately. It is subtle, but undeniable. Power moves when it is acknowledged out loud. Still, she remains cautious. Protection can disappear as quickly as it appears. She has lived long enough to know that. That evening, he cancels a scheduled appearance and tells the press there will be no interviews, no explanations. He chooses privacy instead of performance. She watches from a distance as the man who once treated everything like a transaction begins to dismantle the very structure he built to protect himself. She does not know why. She does not ask. Because for the first time since this began, the future feels uncertain in a way that does not terrify her. It feels open. And for him, the realization settles in quietly, but firmly. Stopping was only the beginning. Now he must decide what it means to do the right thing when no contract demands it. It happens sooner than she expects. The next public appearance cannot be canceled. Too many investors, too many cameras, too much at stake. The event is framed as routine, but beneath the surface, Tension moves like a current. She feels it the moment she steps into the car beside him, the familiar weight returning to her chest. This time, he does not sit across from her like a distant executive. He sits beside her, close enough that she can feel the warmth of his presence, though neither of them acknowledges it. He tells her she does not have to attend. She tells him she will, not because the contract requires it, but because she is tired of running from rooms that judge her before she speaks. The venue is crowded, loud, polished to perfection. Conversations pause when they enter. Heads turn, smiles tighten. She recognizes the looks now, curiosity mixed with expectation, waiting to see whether she will stumble. She does not. She stands taller than before. She keeps her movements calm. She meets eyes without apology. The comments begin quietly. A remark about ambition, a joke delivered with a smile sharp enough to cut, a suggestion that everything has a price, especially loyalty. She feels the familiar urge to retreat. Then he moves. He does not raise his voice. He does not create a scene. He simply steps forward and places himself between her and the speaker. His tone is measured, controlled, unmistakable. He says that his wife does not require commentary. He says that speculation about her character reflects more on the speaker than on her. He says that anyone who cannot show respect is free to leave. The room stills. No one laughs this time. She feels it immediately, the shift in air, the sudden recalibration of power. The whispers stop. The smiles soften. Eyes move away. He does not look at her after. He does not ask if he did the right thing. He simply remains where he is, solid, unyielding. Later, alone again in the car, the silence feels different. Not heavy, not fragile. It feels thoughtful. She thanks him. He shakes his head and tells her that gratitude is not necessary. He says it should have happened sooner. He admits that he underestimated the damage of silence. That admission lingers with her long after the car stops. Over the following days, the pattern continues. He changes seating arrangements so she is no longer placed at the edge of rooms. He corrects people when they speak over her. He asks her opinion in meetings, not as a gesture, but with genuine interest. At first, she answers carefully. Then, gradually, with more confidence. She realizes she is being listened to, not because of his name, because of her voice. Still, doubt remains. At night, she lies awake wondering when the ground will shift again. Protection given can be protection withdrawn. She has seen it happen too many times to believe in permanence. He senses her distance. One evening, he asks her to walk with him through the garden. The request is simple, no assistance, no agenda, just a question. They walk in silence for several minutes before he speaks. He tells her he has lived his entire life measuring value through leverage and outcome. He tells her that stopping that night forced him to see how easily power becomes cruelty when it is left unchecked. He does not excuse himself. He does not ask for forgiveness. He simply tells the truth. She listens, arms folded loosely, heart steady but guarded. She tells him she never expected kindness. She only expected fairness. Everything else feels unfamiliar. He tells her that unfamiliar does not mean wrong. The words stay with her. By the end of the week, something has changed in the way others treat her, but more importantly, in the way she sees herself. She no longer moves like someone waiting for permission. She moves like someone who belongs. For him, the realization deepens. Defending her publicly was not an obligation. It was a choice. And once made, it becomes impossible to return to who he was before. Because the line between a contract and a commitment has begun to blur. And both of them feel it. It does not come from him. It comes from the world that never accepted her presence in the first place. The invitation arrives on thick ivory paper, embossed with his family name. A formal gathering, private, mandatory. No press, but every influential voice that matters. The kind of event where decisions are made quietly, then enforced publicly later. She knows what it is the moment she sees it. A test. He reads the invitation in silence, jaw tightening. He tells her she does not have to attend. He says this time with conviction, not courtesy. She surprises them both by saying yes. Not because she wants approval, but because she refuses to be discussed in rooms she is not allowed to enter. The night of the gathering, the atmosphere is colder than usual. The house is familiar to him, hostile to her. Conversations flow easily until she steps into view. Then they fracture into careful pauses. Dinner begins politely, too politely. Someone comments on tradition. Someone else mentions sacrifice. The words circle her like smoke, never naming her directly, but never missing their target. She keeps her posture steady, her expression neutral, her voice calm when spoken to. Then the real blow lands. A senior family member finally says what everyone has been thinking. They question her suitability, her background, her intentions. They suggest that the arrangement has gone too far, that it is time to reconsider the terms. Reconsider is a dangerous word. They slide a document across the table, an amendment to the original contract. It outlines an exit, quiet, clean, generous, enough money to disappear comfortably, far away from their world. In return, she would sign away her role, her name, and any claim to the life she has been standing inside. The room waits. This is the moment they expect her to reveal herself, to reach for the offer, to prove every assumption correct. She looks at the paper, then she pushes it back. She says she did not enter this marriage to be bought twice. She says she fulfilled every obligation asked of her. She says she will not be erased for someone else's comfort. Her voice does not shake. The silence that follows is immediate and sharp. He does not hesitate this time. He stands, not in anger, not in spectacle, simply standing, commanding the room without raising his voice. He tells them the contract remains unchanged. He tells them that any attempt to remove her without her consent ends now. He tells them the marriage was his decision, and so is protecting it. The word protecting lands heavily. Someone accuses him of losing objectivity, of allowing sentiment to interfere with legacy. They warn him about consequences. He listens. Then he makes his choice. He says that legacy built on humiliation is not worth preserving. He says that power that requires silence is not leadership. He says that if they cannot accept his wife as his equal, they will have to accept his distance instead. The implication is clear. The cost will be theirs. The meeting ends without resolution, but the shift is undeniable. Lines have been crossed, positions taken. There is no return to neutrality. Later that night, back in the car, she finally exhales. She admits she expected him to compromise, to negotiate, to find a middle ground that would remove her from the equation quietly. He tells her there is no middle ground when dignity is involved. For the first time, she believes him. But the confrontation leaves a mark on both of them. She realizes how deeply rooted the opposition is, how much resistance still waits ahead. She wonders whether staying will only cause him more conflict, more loss. He senses the thought before she speaks it. He tells her that if she ever chooses to leave, it will be her choice alone. No pressure, no persuasion, no penalty. The freedom unsettles her more than any threat ever has, because freedom means responsibility. It means deciding what she wants, not just what she can survive. As the car moves through the city lights, both of them sit quietly, aware that something irreversible has happened. The contract has officially become a battleground, and the next move will determine whether it ends in separation or transforms into something neither of them planned for. Because once power is challenged publicly, it demands a final answer. Not physical distance, but the kind that forms when two people realize the ground beneath them is no longer solid. After the confrontation with his family, the house feels different again, quieter, heavier. The staff moves carefully, as if everyone senses that something important has shifted and no one knows where it will land. She keeps busy during the day, not because she is asked to, but because stillness invites too many thoughts. She walks the gardens. She reads. She answers messages from the hospital. Her mother is recovering well, stronger every day. The relief she once clung to has already been paid for. That realization changes everything. At night, she begins to ask herself a question she has avoided since the beginning. If the crisis is over, why am I still here? The contract was meant to be temporary, a solution to an emergency. Now the emergency no longer exists. What remains is a life she never planned for, tied to a man whose choices now affect her in ways that feel far more personal than contractual. He notices the shift in her before she says anything. She speaks less. She smiles politely, but it no longer reaches her eyes. When he enters a room, she does not retreat, but she does not move closer either. She has become careful again, guarding something new. One evening, she asks him to talk, not in the office, not in the formal sitting room. She asks to meet in the kitchen, where the space feels neutral. almost ordinary. She tells him she is grateful for what he has done. She tells him she will never forget that he stood up for her when it mattered most. Then she tells him she is thinking about leaving. The words land softly, but they hit hard. She explains that staying now feels like borrowing courage she did not earn. That every time he defends her, it costs him something. Influence, relationships, control. She does not want to be the reason his world fractures. She tells him she never wanted to be protected forever. She only wanted a chance to survive with her dignity intact. He listens without interrupting. When she finishes, he asks one question. He asks if she is afraid of him. She says no. He asks if she feels trapped. She hesitates, then answers honestly. She says she feels unsure. That answer matters more than she realizes. He tells her that uncertainty is not the same as obligation. He tells her that if she stays, it should not be because she feels she owes him. And if she leaves, it should not be because she feels she is disposable. He tells her that the contract was meant to control outcomes. What is happening now cannot be controlled. For the first time, he admits something he has not said out loud. He admits that stopping that night changed him. That seeing her fear and realizing his own power in that moment forced him to confront a version of himself he does not want to be. He admits that protecting her was not strategy, it was instinct. She absorbs his words slowly. Then she asks the question she has been holding back. She asks him what he wants. He does not answer right away. When he finally speaks, he chooses his words carefully. He says he wants to do the right thing. Not as a billionaire, not as a son, not as a figurehead for anyone else's expectations. He says he wants to be someone who deserves the trust he is asking her to place in him. That is not a declaration of love. It is something more dangerous, because it leaves space for choice. They agree on one thing that night: no more assumptions. They agree to suspend the emotional part of the arrangement entirely. No shared appearances beyond what is absolutely necessary. No gestures meant to persuade. No promises implied. She will take time. He will give it. The next morning she begins packing. Not everything. Just enough to remind herself that leaving is possible. He watches from the doorway, saying nothing. He understands now that love cannot be negotiated into existence. It has to be chosen freely, or it becomes another form of control. As she zips the bag closed, she pauses. She looks at him and tells him she does not know what decision she will make yet. He tells her that whatever she decides, it will be respected. That promise carries more weight than any contract ever could. She is gone from the house, not dramatically, not with finality, but with intention. A small apartment across town, quiet, modest, chosen by her, paid for by her own savings, not by his accounts. For the first time in months, every object in the room belongs to her alone. The distance is deliberate. She needs to know who she is without his name echoing behind her footsteps. Days pass, then a week. He does not call. He does not send flowers. He does not ask her to return. He keeps his word. Instead, he does something far more difficult. He dismantles the contract. Quietly, legally, completely. His legal team objects. His family protests. Advisors warn him that reversing the arrangement publicly will invite speculation, weaken leverage, and create instability. He listens to every argument. Then he signs the termination papers anyway. No replacement clause, no hidden conditions, no pressure to renegotiate. He makes it official. The press release is brief. The marriage contract has been dissolved by mutual agreement. No scandal, no explanation, privacy requested. For the first time, the story no longer belongs to the public. It belongs to her. She hears about it not from him, but from a news alert on her phone. She reads the headline twice, then a third time. Her hands tremble slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of what he has done. He has given up control. That night, there is a knock at her door. She does not open it right away. She knows who it is. When she finally does, he is standing there without security, without a driver, without the posture he once carried like armor. He looks tired, but resolved. He does not step inside. He tells her he is not there to ask her back. He tells her he is not there to persuade or promise anything. He tells her he came to do one thing only. He came to return her freedom. He hands her a folder. Inside are copies of the termination documents, clear, final, unambiguous. He tells her she owes him nothing, not time, not gratitude, not explanation. He tells her that what happens next is entirely her choice. Then he waits. The silence stretches between them, fragile but honest. She looks at the papers, then she looks at him. She sees no expectation in his eyes, no calculation, only acceptance. She asks him why. He answers simply. He says that love, if it exists, cannot grow in a cage, even a gilded one. He says that if she ever chooses him again, it must be without leverage, without debt, without fear. He tells her that stopping was the first step. Letting go is the second. She feels something shift inside her. Not obligation, not gratitude. Trust. She tells him she does not know yet what she wants. She tells him that freedom feels heavier than she imagined. That choice is terrifying when survival is no longer the excuse. He nods. He tells her that fear does not mean no. It just means honest. Before he leaves, she asks him one question. She asks him if he regrets it. He answers without hesitation. He says no. He says that whatever happens next, he would make the same decision again. He turns to go. She stops him. Not with a promise. Not with forgiveness. With a question of her own. She asks him if he would like to start over. Not as husband and wife. Not as billionaire and dependent. But as two people meeting without an agreement written for them. He looks at her, surprised, then careful. He asks her what that would look like. She smiles, small but real, and tells him it would look like coffee. No assistance, no press, no expectations, just conversation. He agrees, not eagerly, not possessively, gratefully. As he walks away, she closes the door and leans against it, heart racing. For the first time, the future is not something she is enduring or negotiating. It is something she is choosing. And for him, the realization settles in quietly. The grand gesture was never about winning her back. It was about proving that her choice matters more than his desire. Now, whatever comes next will be real. Or it will not happen at all. Not with headlines, not with announcements, but with a morning that feels ordinary and therefore extraordinary. They meet for coffee the following week. A small place, no private room, no reserved table. Just two people standing in line, deciding what they want. He insists on paying, then stops himself and smiles when she raises an eyebrow. She pays instead. It feels symbolic, and they both let it be. They talk for hours, not about contracts, not about families, not about the past they already survived. They talk about small things, music, childhood memories, mistakes they would never repeat. For the first time, there is no imbalance to navigate, no role to perform. When they part, there is no promise attached, just a second meeting, then a third. Weeks pass, then months. Their relationship grows slowly, deliberately, built on consent rather than obligation. He learns how to listen without fixing. She learns how to speak without fear of consequence. There are disagreements, misunderstandings, moments of hesitation, but there is also something new, equality. The world notices eventually. It always does. Questions surface. Speculation returns. This time, neither of them rushes to answer. They do not owe anyone a narrative. The silence no longer feels defensive. It feels protected. One evening, he invites her to a small gallery opening. Nothing extravagant, no cameras, just a space filled with art from local creators. She realizes later that he chose it because he knew she would feel comfortable there. As they stand together, unremarkable among the crowd, she catches him watching her with something she has never seen before. Reverence, not possession, not pride, respect. Later that night, as they walk outside, he stops. There is no audience, no music cue, no spectacle. He tells her he has something to say, and for the first time since she met him, his voice is unsteady. He tells her that the first time he asked her to marry him, it was not a question, it was a transaction. He tells her that stopping that night showed him the difference between taking and choosing. He tells her that he will not ask her to belong to him. He asks if she will choose him. Then he kneels. The ring is simple, thoughtful, chosen with intention, not value. She does not answer right away. She thinks of the woman who signed her name in that office, the woman who endured silence, the woman who believed dignity was something she had to trade. She thinks of the man who tore a contract apart because freedom mattered more than control. She smiles, and she says yes. The wedding is small, no contracts, no clauses, no spectators hungry for a story, just people who earn the right to witness it. When she walks down the aisle, she is not performing, she is choosing. He meets her halfway. At the reception, someone asks what changed everything for them. He answers simply, He says that love did not begin when he realized who she was. It began when he realized who he needed to stop being. She squeezes his hand, knowing that the ending they found was never written for them. It was chosen. And that is what makes it real. The story ends where it should. Not with wealth, not with power, but with two people standing on equal ground, knowing that the only contract they honor now is the one they renew every day, freely, honestly, together.